Just give me a little. Ready? Thinking about who a Bahamian is? Are you wondering why we spend so much time on the Queen's funeral? Pause, think about it with intentional thought, and consider where we go from here. Stay tuned and hear what Rev'd Canon Sebastian Campbell got to say about Bahamian identity. The crown, our unsung heroes, our national icons, and national leadership today, so that we can advance this country to the highest heights that we've ever been. We'll be right back.
SumTin to think about with Dale Happy Knowles.
Welcome to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. What we think, we become. What we radiate, we attract. And what we imagine, we surely can achieve. Let's change the narrative 242. And this evening we have another special guest in our midst, one with plenty wisdom under his hat. He's been around the world, up in space, up to God and everywhere else back with us, and he's laying his nuggets on the table for us this evening. No other than the Rev'd Canon S. Sebastian Campbell, named after his father. Welcome, Canon.
Good afternoon, sir, and thanks a lot for having me, for introducing me to this medium.
You're awesome. We gotta have you in all spaces.
First time. I need to advertise you now that I know about you.
Good. Yes. Well, you know my peoples, and we go way back. And my uncle Knowles was actually a representative in Cat Island, and I know that's your home base.
Is that Rev'd Knowles?
That's him, one and only. Yes.
He was an icon in Cat Island. I knew about him from the time I was born, hearing the name Rev'd Knowles. He was like the Lord Mayor of Cat Island.
Mayor.
Then Lord Mayor. Then eventually he became the Member of Parliament for Cat Island. And he came in as the member for the Bahamas Democratic Party, the BDP. And eventually he switched to the PLP. And he brought the whole of Cat Island to the PLP with him. Cat Island, at that point, Cat Island became a safe seat for the PLP because of it.
No, that's great to learn that. I didn't realize that he was the one who caused it to go to the PLP. I know before it was the UBP had a stronghold on that
the
space.
UBP started with a very strong hold, and then it became a swing seat between the UBP and the PLP, and then anyone could have won it. And then when he became a member of parliament, he won that as an individual. He was that well loved and respected by most of the people in Cat Island as a builder, road contractor, and all those good things.
Right.
So he developed that love for Cat Island. People loved him. And I forgot what year it was. He went to the PLP, and the whole of Cat Island followed him.
Right.
Now you can say Cat Island is a safe PLP seat because of him.
Okay, I will put that in my book so I can remember that, and put your name next to it as being the enlightening one to tell us.
Yes.
So you would have been one who would have been around since the mid-56, when you were pop on this earth. And as a child, I understand that you would have played church with your siblings, and along the way you ended up becoming a priest. Was
you
that
heard a lot? You heard a lot. Ever since, honestly, I grew up in the church. With my other siblings, I have 13 siblings. 3 died, 11 of us now. Wow. And we grew up in St. Andrew's Anglican Church in Artistown. And when I was 6 years old, I remember as a little boy running around the churchyard before service started that evening. There was one James Campbell. We call him Jimmy. That's a well-known name, especially in the insurance business in Nassau. Jimmy Campbell.
Yeah.
His son is now the member of parliament for Senegal. He grabbed me and said, "Come, you go in on the altar with me tonight." He was one of the senior servers in the church, and he grabbed me and he threw a cassock on me, what you'll call a robe. And he was like a big brother to me. And I sat next to him that night and every other service until I was weaned in coming onto my own. And that's where the idea for ministry, the ordained ministry, the priesthood really got started. And I was 6 years old with Jimmy Campbell, who probably the Lord used to rope me in. So ever since I was 6 years old, I was serving around the altar as an acolyte, and eventually I became, cut a long story short, became a priest. And believe me, it was on the 29th of September. Is that 1982? 1982? Because Thursday of this week, I'll be celebrating 40 years as a priest. So you do the maths. I'm not good at maths.
Yeah, well, we congratulate you for that, and we thank you for your service, because in the south of New Providence, your name is huge.
Well,
I have a lot of friends in the south.
I was fortunate to have been assigned to All Saints on Calvary Hill, where I served some 21 years as a rector. And God knows there was so much work to be done in the south, not only physically to the building, and we ended up building one of the largest community centers within the Anglican diocese to be used by the people in the south. And we did a lot of work with the young people in the area. And it was a joy really working in the south. And I came to the south after serving as the youth director of the Anglican diocese of the whole Bahamas.
Right.
From Grand Bahama to Salkeen, the Turks and Caicos. I really left that job reluctantly because I was enjoying working with young people, doing a lot of crazy things and exciting them, and they excited me. I was enjoying it. And the bishop convinced me that I probably need to go into a church, because that a church might not be too easily convenient. I need to take a church.
Right.
There I landed. And I absolutely, it was quite a challenge. It wasn't easy, quite a challenge. But I enjoyed it and spent 21 years there in the South.
So your experience then in serving around the altar and serving as leader of that church in the South, All Saints and the like, and I guess in your pedigree, your heritage, through your parents and things that would have happened, you grew an affinity for community and also for the community of the Bahamas, in particular in terms of this national heroes movement, I call it. Tell us a little bit about that. Yeah.
Well, I think community work and that love for country, serving country, that's part of the DNA that I inherited. My father, Sebastian Campbell Sr., he was a community man in Cat Island, one of the big generals of the PLP from the time the PLP started, one of those persons who was involved as members of local government. He was a local, called a local constable, a LC, local constable. He was involved in every aspect of the church. You know, he was one of the movers and shakers within the community. And no doubt that rubbed off on me, and indeed many of my other siblings as well. Because I have a sibling right now who is what you call them, administrator. You used to call them
Island administrator. Yeah.
Island
administrator.
That's Earl Campbell, who is now in Central Elutra. My senior nephew, Neil Campbell, is the director of local government in the Bahamas. Okay. My eldest brother, Oscar, he was a big thing in immigration. I have a brother who is a deputy director of environmental health, that's Lakewood. And so this thing runs through a vein to be involved within the community. And so I always interpreted my call as a priest to be a call to community service. not just keeping church, not just keeping
Right.
mass, not just dressed up in robes, all right? But somehow to know that the call of a priest is a call to be a community leader, all right? Many persons couldn't understand that. I guess a lot of people still don't understand that. They call me radical, they call me anything but a child of God sometimes.
Yeah, but we know that ain't true.
And I remember one time while living in Long Island, I was assigned to Long Island. We had a problem with Bahamas here, and myself and my family, we had to do a demonstration at the airport at Deadman's Key to stop Bahamas Air flying one time in order to get some justice for the people in Long Island. That was a big thing as well. But ultimately, I noticed Fred Mitchell, he was then Senator Mitchell, I think, and Loretta Butler Turner. They had I don't know what you call it, they had a press conference under the fig tree by the Supreme Court.
Right,
The fig tree, yeah. And that was in 1991. And they were talking about elevating Milo Butler to national hero status. And I saw that on radio and saw it on TV and heard it on radio. And I said, that's what I wanted. It was like a call.
Right.
Came over me. And do you believe within a short while, Fred Mitchell actually called me and invited me to a meeting and tried to sell the campaign that he and Loretta just started of national heroes. And said he think that I might be the best person, seeing that I'm a priest. I was apolitical. Nobody would think that I had any allegiance to any political party, PLP or FNM, because he already thought that he and Loretta were marked as FNMs at the time and it wouldn't get much traction. And so they supported me as leader to form this National Heroes Committee that would be an engine to wake up the Bahamas that the time has come for us to do something in order to recognize our heroes or legends in the Bahamas. And rightly so, the move was to get Milo Butler recognized.
Right.
I don't know if you remember in 1972, after the 72 election, Prime Minister Pinlin and his government declared Milo Butler as a national hero. That is actually on the law books in the Bahamas. And then that was just buried in obscurity. Nobody heard about it anymore. Milo Butler was given permission to sit while he addressed the speaker in the House of Assembly. Milo Butler was the one who led the demonstration against racism, especially as it was practiced in downtown Nassau, in the Royal Bank of Canada. That was one of his main stomping grounds, where black people could not find, were not hired, couldn't have a job. All right? And Milo Butler declared that people walk knee deep in blood before he stops in that campaign to get blacks recognized as equals downtown on Bay Street. Milo Butler was the one who was locked up in the bathroom in the House of Assembly when they were moving some controversial motion within the House of Assembly, locked up in the bathroom by one of the UVP generals.
But Canon, so Milo couldn't be locked up in no place, man, because I understand he was a big, strong man, and so how you get locked in the bathroom?
Well, history shows that just before the vote was being taken, was some vote to abolish discrimination on some level. I don't have the exact fact, but a vote to deal with discrimination in the Bahamas, that he went into the bathroom just before the vote was taken. And all eyes were on him because he was one of the, big guns with a lot of voice. And someone went behind the lock, definitely was on the outside.
Right.
and they locked him up. And he remained until after the vote was taken. All right. The point I'm trying to make was that our movement started as a movement to recognize Milo B. Butler as one of the leading heroes of the Bahamas. That was while Pinland was the prime minister.
Prime Minister, right.
But unfortunately, nothing was done. We continued.
Yeah, right.
All right. With what we call the Red Mass in Rawson Square. And the first one was on the 22nd of January, 1992, which would have been the anniversary of the death of Sabalo. And eventually, Hubert Ingram became prime minister. He listened to us. And at the death of Sir Lyndon, Hubert Ingram agreed that a day ought to be set aside, not only to honor Sir Milo, but he said he think there'd be more currency and set aside a day to honor all Bahamian heroes.
Heroes, right. Okay.
And he also opined that, well, we have too many holidays. Not that he thought so, but that the merchants thought that there were too many holidays already within the year. And so we had better take one of the holidays that were already there, and Bahamians would say christen it or rechristen it.
Right.
And make it a national, and call it National Heroes, and honor not only Sir Lyndon, but to honor all the Bahamian heroes on that day. Now, it was Hubert Ingram who suggested to us, because at that time we had a campaign going on against Christopher Columbus. We were exposing the atrocities done to the Bahamas by Christopher Columbus. This whole thing about seeing Christopher Columbus as a hero, we exposed his atrocities, all right? And we were asking that Discovery Day be kicked out the calendar. And that's why Hubert Ingram grabbed to the idea, well, I'm seeing that there's a movement already. Politicians normally follow people, Politicians normally follow people. All right? Let's rechristen that one. Let's rechristen that one and make that one the National Heroes celebration. But he dragged his feet so much. In fact, he did move the first reading in the House, but he dragged his feet so much that eventually an election was called and that died. And then up comes Perry Christie. That's the man we needed. Because the first thing we did as a committee, we made Perry Christie an honorary member of the National Heroes Committee. We had to play some politics.
Oh, for sure. And he likes to be membership. Members, so that's good.
He provided him another platform to talk. So Perry Christie came to many of our rallies, many of our meetings, and of course he had the microphone. All right. So with the back of Fred Mitchell, who was now a member of Parliament, member of the cabinet, Perry Christie revived the old bill that was moved by Hubert Ingram, and we dusted that off, and we came up with the idea now that the second Monday in October would be now recognized as National Heroes Day to honor all the heroes in the Bahamas. Now watch this. Ingram was saying that there were too many holidays. Not that he was saying, but he said the people were saying there were too many holidays. But Perry Christie said we must have room for at least one more. So our campaign expanded then that somehow we need to celebrate the 10th of January. Every year as a majority rule day. And that got traction right away. That picked up traction right away. All right. I remember other folks who was Governor General at the time, he was one of the first one who came out to support it and said that majority January 10th, 1967 is our second emancipation. On the 1st of August, 1834, Bahamians were emancipated physically. The chains were taken from off their hands and their feet, but the chains remained on their minds. And so from 1834 to 1967, he said 67 is the mental emancipation, when for the first time blacks believed that they had the right and the capacity to govern themselves. So other folks became one of our honorary members. When God moves in a mighty way. And so Perry Christie brushed off the idea that there were too many holidays, said we must have another holiday.
January
10th The January 10th, the exact day itself, is to be the holiday. So we don't move that around. They say the nearest Monday or the nearest Friday to that. And
yeah, so Canon, when we look at this whole picture, the national heroes, tell us now, because we want to bend all of this discussion today into terms of our identity. Tell us, why is it important for our identity to have a National Heroes Day?
I'll say absolutely. The Bahamas happens to be, in this region, one of the countries, the slowest country in really pressing forward progressively in honoring, in the recognition of our people. What we were doing then started in 1992. Other countries in the region, they already gone way ahead of us. All right. And the Bahamas always behind countries right in the Caribbean when we ought to be the most progressive, because God seemed to bless us more richly and abundantly than other countries in the Caribbean. We one of the richest countries in the world.
Yeah, he lives here though. Yeah, so that's why. Yeah.
If you go right back to independence, for example, Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad, these countries were independent long before the Bahamas. All right? Already coming onto the Dominica not only became independent, but Dominica went straight into republic status. And all these small countries around us were making cycles around us. In Antigua, I don't know if you've been to Antigua before. There's a super life-size statue of Bird, the father of the Antigua nation. If you've been to Bridgetown, Barbados before, man, downtown Bridgetown, a super life-size statue of Errol Barrow. And not only that, they have a Heroes Day in Barbados. And they have an Errol Barrow Day, another holiday in Barbados. Jamaica and Trinidad, they have National Heroes Parks, etc., etc. All right? So we just have to look right around us in our own region. And these are the smaller countries, poorer countries, poor in terms of money, all right, but probably further ahead of us intellectually, all right, were making cycles around us. And so that was part of the fodder I used in the campaign, that we Bahamians, we need to catch up, all right? And we need to come to grips with the fact that we are standing on the shoulders of great men and great women, whether you call them legends or heroes, giants, whatever you call them. And we need to rescue them from the graveyards of obscurity, all right? We need to sing their praises, because in our schools then, I believe even up to now, who do they teach us about? Who do they tell us are our heroes?
Right.
How much longer could we try to talk about the atrocities of these Europeans who came to our shores and raped us physically, psychologically, religiously, and every which way? All right? Columbus chief among them. All right? Go to school, learn about the War of the Roses and all the kings of England and the queens and all the atrocities, and the list goes on. Okay? He said now that we have become an independent country. Let us work towards becoming truly independent, because independence is not a one-shot deal. Yeah, so many Bahamians believe that the 10th of July, 1973, that's it.
Right.
That's a start. We have to build on that. All right? And an important plank in our campaign was that Afro-Bahamian history be taught to all our children, all of our schools. All right?
Right.
Can you hear that?
Right. So
we're still working towards that. We're still working towards achieving that. teaching Afro-Bahamian history to all
Right,
our children
okay.
and all us, even at the university level. All right. And so education was a part of it. And also a part of that education was the Heroes Park. All right. We have to educate our people as far as that is concerned by building statues and having monuments and other things that
Yeah.
are necessary in order to
So
teach. All right.
yeah. So you're saying then that when we look at this whole movement, then basically we're saying that we were still so attached to the crown or the concept of the crown, the institution, the pomp and pageantry, all of that kind of stuff that we did not follow suit with the same vigor and progression as the other nations in our neighboring vicinity. But when we came to independence, we went and we formed the Constitution, which in my view and training is the supreme law of the land, which is our legal identity as to what we should be following in terms of what a Bahamian is supposed to be all about. So do we identify with the Constitution today?
Well, you see, again, we are so static. We do things and then we do not want to or believe that we don't need to follow up on what we have done. All right. We are not truly independent. We are not truly independent as long as we are where we are in terms of our mental mindset that anything foreign is better. And
Right,
therefore,
okay.
we need to begin to start with, for example, the Privy Council. All right, is the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court of the Bahamas. All right, and we thought we had won the day when we brought on national honors. By the way, that was one of the main planks too of the National Heroes Committee. National honors, we achieved that. And Perry Christie, who was the Prime Minister at the time, said, "Well, good. Now colonial honors will go to the window." All right.
Okay.
So these were steps in our ongoing evolution in becoming truly independent. Then look what happens. Hubert Minnis becomes Prime Minister. And the audacity, he brings national honors, he brings colonial honors back to the Bahamas. Huh? What's wrong with our mindset? Why did he do that? And why are Bahamians supporting that? We're going backward. All right. And I was shocked when we continued. I think we did it again recently. But we have to learn to shake off this mantle of colonialism and come and to want to know that we don't need some foreign power to accredit us that we might be somebody. And that's what national honors was all about. We have our honor system now. We fought for it. My God, we fought for it. And we have it. And as long as you have an external system, especially that comes from a white country, Bahamians have always believed that it's superior. Always.
Wow.
Although the Bahamian honors are superior on paper, in our mindset, white is always better. If you're white, you're right. If you're brown, hang around. If you're black, stand back. That mentality we have to shake. Still exists that we have to shake. And this must be the ongoing quest of this generation. All right. The Constitution. Use another example. The Constitution is not meant to be static. The Constitution is a dynamic document that needs change. But unfortunately, again, I don't know how the fathers of this nation tied up this Constitution to such an extent that it must go to a referendum for everything. To change everything. Barbados became a republic last year. They had no referendum. They had no referendum because their constitution is not tied up like our constitution is tied up. All right. The prime minister decided. The members of government followed on. They became a republic. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, Bahamians become so static, so tied down that we find it hard to move on. All right. And that's why I say we're normally the last country in this region to really move forward on any great idea that will evolve us to being truly independent, to truly be Bahamian that we ought to be. Because right now, at independence, one of the great things that we've been talked about was that we have our own passport. You no longer have a British passport. You know, before independence, you had a British passport, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We were British.
Subjects.
We were subjects of Great Britain. Say after independence, we'll have our own passport. Okay, we
Money.
have our own passport now. That's part of the evolution. We should be much further ahead than we are right now. 50 years almost. As an independent country, we should not be swearing allegiance to a foreign power. When you are sworn in as anything, a judge, member of parliament, cabinet minister, even as a priest in the church, you have to declare your allegiance, well, in our day, was to a majesty, heirs and successors. So help me God. My God, man, come on. An independent country, after 50 years, we still do that.
Yeah.
Huh?
So Canon. Yeah. So if we in this state, then help then the generation today, because we seem to latch on to all kind of things that is cross the waters, to identify with. But in your estimation, what is a Bahamian? What should a Bahamian be? The identity of a Bahamian.
Well, this is it. It's an evolution. All right. It's quite easy to say, well, because you were born here, parents were born here, you were born here, your parents born here, or you are paper, get piece of paper, you're Bahamian. But to be truly Bahamian, we have to continue this struggle that is called the struggle of evolution. I was born to parents who all Cat Islanders, therefore all Bahamians. All right. And so I have a right by birth to say I'm a Bahamian. All right. But there again, it is what kind of Bahamian you are.
Okay.
That really matters. All right. By birth or by paper, that makes you Bahamian. What kind of Bahamian are you? I guess that's where the question really ought to be. All right. Because we have Bahamians who become Bahamians by paper, and they're only plunderers of this country. They come for what they could get. All right. I'm not saying all. I'm saying there are many. They're plunderers. All right. They come to what they could get. But we have some Bahamians who were born here, Bahamians by birth, who are also plunderers.
Right.
In the sense that, like, was it John F. Kennedy, when Kennedy brother says, do not ask what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. There's so many people have this gimme spirit. You only want what they can get, always looking for what they can get from the country, rather than how we can invest ourselves into the country, all right, in order to build this country up. And listen here, God has given us thousands and thousands of acres of property from deep south to high north, all right? We never use all this property in our lifetime. We know that, all right? What are we doing to invest? All right. Too many children are being graduating from school who are illiterate. Can't read. Can't read. There are a lot of Bahamians who are unemployable. Nobody wants them because they're up to scratch. All right. How are we investing ourselves as Bahamians in order to raise these people, invest ourselves in the literacy, the high rate of illiteracy that is in this land, the high rate of persons who are unemployed in all that. All right. So we need Bahamians, true Bahamians are Bahamians who are investing themselves in the Bahamas. Okay. And listen here, we have a big crisis, health crisis in the Bahamas. All right. Big health crisis. There are a lot of Bahamians who are dying because they don't have money.
Right.
Catastrophic health insurance is long overdue. It was the idea of Lyndon Pinland to bring that about in the 1992, after 1992 elections, but they voted him out. And to this day, we have primary care. But we need,
Mm-hmm.
we need, come
Yeah.
on, man, we need far more than that. All right. And so
Yeah.
we need Bahamians with intellect to help us to evolve this country. In this country, be taking care of one another. That's what true Bahamian is. Okay? Helping to bring this country up right now. You don't even have a conversation on catastrophic health insurance. Why is there not even a conversation? We talk but marital rape all the time.
Yeah, but Canon, you say we need those with intellect. I suggest that we have those with intellect, but now what I think we might have is attitudes towards things might be tweaked in a different direction, and that's why I asked you about the crown, because if you, just as you were talking just now, if we are still, our attitude is still that we feel that we have some allegiance to the crown. I mean, granted, I know it's head of state, and that's from a structural point of view and all that kind of stuff, and it's the crown of the Bahamas. But the concept is that most Bahamians believe that the crown is the crown of England is our crown, right? And so when we look at all of that, then it seems like that we have a strong identity of people a strong group of people who are identifying with the old school, pre-independence, and then there's another school who is post-independence, but it don't seem like we have any one identity that is dominant. What's your take on that?
We want to hold on to two coattails one time.
Oh, gee.
All right. We want to be free, and at the same time, we prefer to be enslaved, because we find more comfort in being enslaved. It's like a child who wants to be weaned from home, but continue to stay at home, or want the comfort of knowing that mommy have food there to eat and I don't have to pay rent. So I will stay at home, but at the same time claim to be independent. We can't be living in two worlds at the same time.
Yes.
The time has long come, we ought to abolish the crown. Long overdue. That ought to have been a part of this process of being independent. And so, again, I want to repeat what I said a while ago, too, that we are not fully independent. We are in the process of being independent. The Bahamas is in process. Lyndon Pinland, for example, shortly after he lost the election, he said that the plan was to go republic. He said that. And that was a part of his plan if he had remained in government. I say, oh, what a pity you saying this thing now that you're the government. My Lord, you got for this at all. All right.
It's
so
harder.
This was a part. This must be a part of the overall plan. But I am convinced republic will come. We will eventually abolish all white overlords from England. I think my only problem is why we taking so long. Independence. I remember Allen Butler saying during the campaign, say independence is inevitable. I want it now, and I think that is what the cry should be right now. Becoming truly Bahamian. You do not need the white people, the crown from England, to accredit you. And there's a mindset that we need to change. And I believe anybody over 50, probably, should I say 50? Anyone over 50 would be the ones who have difficulty in accepting what I'm saying. But my problem is we spoiling, poisoning the minds of our young children. All right? And we need more persons to preach a message to them of liberation, that we are where we are, thank God. We're not where we used to be, but two, we are not where we're supposed to be.
Again, well, the young people will move faster than we'd be moving. So, I mean, it's just a matter of guiding them with the right with the right picture, so they could paint a picture in their minds as to how they. I mean, that's what leadership is all about, right? And we're going to touch on that right after this little short break. But in terms of moving towards where we want to go to, so folks out there, you're watching Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles, and we're here with the I almost say right reverend, because I mean in a way it could be, but we know that has its own structure. But Rev'd Canon Sebastian Campbell, all the way from Cat Island on top of the hill and out south, and now put in a lot of contribution towards the movement for National Heroes Day, and we're talking about Bahamian identity. And when we come back, we want you to ask all your questions of him so that he can answer whatever you feel uncomfortable or not you don't know well. Maybe he can answer it, or he can point you in the right direction as to where to get the answers if he doesn't have it. And so we when we come back, we're going to dwell into a little bit more on the identity, its impact, and some of the things in terms of particularly the unsung heroes that we have in our society, that because we always seem to always highlight the same people, and people get tired of that. Particularly young people always tell me, well, there'll be somebody else. We can't just be them. So we'll be right back.
Sammy's Chicken. There's nothing like it.
Welcome back to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. And this evening we're here with Canon Sebastian Campbell. He'll be back on the screen in a couple of seconds or so. But we're here talking about identity, the Bahamian identity, and some of the things that are obstacles to us, and some of the things that we can leverage in order to help bring out what is a Bahamian, and so forth. And before the break, we talked about a lot of things in terms of the National Heroes Day and so forth. And we just want to touch now on, in the short bit of time, because I see time has really flown, and we pretty much is almost out of that a lot of time. But if we could just touch on it, Canon, and we'll have to bring you back, because I mean, obviously, this almost looks like a 3-part series, because I haven't even passed my first 2 paragraphs. But this is really nice and enlightening.
No
Yes.
problem.
Yes. So before the break, we talked about the crown, and one of the things that I think is critical from our identity is that we have a number of scholars who say that the Bahamian language is an actual language and not a dialect or some subordinate thing that I guess one set of people like to push. And I always feel that we should be teaching that in school and so forth. But the same way, we have people who don't want to be a part of the crown, but then they dismiss the language and say you have to speak the Queen's English. And so that goes to the attitudinal thing that you were talking about a couple of seconds ago. But could you highlight for us some of the unsung heroes who made a gigantic impact on forging or causing us to forge in the direction that we have forged in time? And then we will definitely have to bring you back to dwell into these things in more detail.
That's dangerous waters you want me to get in.
No, man.
You know
the
why?
people need to
You know
know.
why?
The people needs to know.
You know why? Part of our Heroes campaign was to have Heroes Parks in all of our communities in the Bahamas, all right? So that each community might be able to identify heroes in that community rather than anybody forcing heroes upon them. And I'm thankful, for example, Green Turtle Key. Good example. Green Turtle Key has a Heroes Park. All right.
Okay.
You've been Green Turtle Key before, you can't miss it except you see that, right? And they have identified their people. These the persons who mean something to them and they can teach about and children can know about them and stand on their shoulders. We go to the Bluff, Andros. There's a heroes wall set up in the Bluff Andros with their heroes. Each year they will put add names to it. You go to Cat Island. There is a heroes wall there in Cat Island. I remember my father, his name is one of those names on that wall. All right. My brother was the commissioner, not commissioner, administrator, said that they're starting one in San Salvador where he was administrator. They wanted me to come to speak, but unfortunately I can't make that speaking engagement for Heroes Day this year. Okay, so I thought I would say that. And even in New Providence, there ought to be heroes walls in Baintown, Grantstown, and South Beach, in these areas. Persons who made contributions within these areas. What I don't like doing too is the thing with politicians only as heroes, but of course we can't avoid them. And the greatest of all Bahamians who have ever lived, and Hubert Ingham would support me, was Sir Lyndon Oscar Penland. All right.
Okay.
And he is the greatest of all heroes of all times. All right. And there should be a holiday just for Sir Lyndon Penland. Just him. In addition to Majority Rule Day. All right. Of course, Milo B. Butler. All right. In his fight against racism. Ada Diana. All right. Doris Johnson. All right. H.W. Brown. Some church people. All right. Michael H. Eldon, Donald R. Knowles. Donald Knowles, the first Bahamian to become a bishop. All right. Pompey. That is one person every Bahamian ought to study. I understand that there's a statue erected to Pompey somewhere in Exuma. All right. We need to do some more studies in the slave revolt and slavery to rescue more of those slave persons, slaves from obscurity. All right, but he's a chief among them. You know, Pompey. I don't think we don't teach about him in school at all. All right, and yeah, he ought to be in our classes. And then you go to some. I have William Granger as one of my heroes as well, for the great work that he did in Cat Island, turned Cat Island upside down, inside out, educationally. He, along with Rodney Bain, right? I understand. I might get in trouble for this, but I heard that school in Artistown is the first family island high school, and that was due to William Granger and Rodney Bain, and many of the great Bahamian elites, educationally otherwise, are graduates of that school there in Artistown and Cat Island. That's the foundation that I was told about that.
Right.
And we named some other persons as the heroes. Mamie Aswood was one. John Pugh was another one. Alexander Melis was another one we named all the time. Richard Dean was another one that we named all the time. And probably these names mean nothing to people. You have to go and study them. That is why, very important, we have to write. Remember, they had a campaign one time called Read Bahamas?
Yep, I remember that.
We need another campaign. Let's write Bahamas.
And the third one, to watch something to think about with Dale Happy Knows, because then they who don't want to read nor write could hear it firsthand from people.
Yeah, absolutely. So we need more educational programs on radio, TV, and on the media period. Yeah.
Yes.
He must educate.
Good. Well, when we bring you back, we're going to want to talk about some of these things because this issue of statues to me is a serious one. I've written a couple of things and sent it on to 3 different administrations. I haven't seen any movement on any of those. At least I planted in seeds of certain individuals who I thought would have moved with it. But one of them before. I'm sorry?
I would love to see what you've written. Because we have a committee in place right now where I'm the vice chairman. The chairman is Christopher Curry, Dr. Curry from UB. And we have a committee in place right now where we're exploring the possibility of a National Heroes Park, the National Heroes Park of the Bahamas at Clifton.
Okay.
We have a committee in place. I would like to see your work that you've done so far, or anybody else's work in that regard. And I could probably make a go for it at the committee level. Okay,
well, I'll pull it up and dust it off and put some context to it and send it on.
Beautiful.
Yes. And that would be great. But one of the things that the old movies would always show us was that we had song, and song had a big play in our identity whether it was on the plantation, the chain gang, whatever it is. And so we also want to touch into musical space and whether we're using song, because I grew up with Sparrow and all those different people in those places, Blind Blake and
Sparrow
and so forth. Huh?
The Mighty Sparrow, eh?
Yes, and all of those who was telling stories 80 minutes, but I don't see it happening today. So we definitely have to bring you back so we could discuss how this thing really can work for us to move forward, and particularly the leadership part, right?
Don't forget Phil Stubbs. Don't leave Phil Stubbs out.
No. I like him. Actually, the Prime Minister now, he wasn't Prime Minister then. He told me about 2 songs that Phil Stubbs wrote. I don't know if they ever became public, but I think he should publicize them if he didn't, because they were some serious storytelling. But Gannon, we really would like to thank you for sacrificing some of your time this evening to share with us and the audience a wide on some of these, what I think is critical parts of our national development, and to help us expand our minds and to grow from strength to strength, so that we could move the country to where the direction that we want to, with intellectual thought and not just emotional thought and so forth. But we really like to thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you a lot for having me. And now I know about you. You're on every Tuesday at 6?
Every Tuesday at 6, if the good fellow upstairs decides he can allow me to. And if not, we figure out a way to manipulate so something will be on. Yeah.
Keep it going. Yeah, keep it going.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I'll help to advertise it.
Yes, thank you. And we'll touch base with you to see how your schedule goes when we could bring you back on to tap off our discussion.
Okay, very well. No problem. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks everybody for watching Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knows this evening. We ask that you use the information, share, and let it be a source of enlightenment and encouragement to you. Good evening.
Enjoyed the show? Then subscribe to us for more educational and inspirational content. Ring the bell so you never miss a show. Let's change the narrative 242